The night was cold, but the sting in my chest burned hotter than any fire. In the dim light of my phone, I saw the group photo, my husband smiling wide, surrounded by his family. Without me, that was the moment I decided to rewrite the script of my own life. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. The faint hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound breaking the stillness of the room. I sat at the edge of the bed, my fingers brushing over the cool silk sheets, my mind wandering through the events of the past month. My name is Alina, I'm 25 years old, and just 30 days ago, I thought I had stepped into the perfect love story. I remember my wedding day as vividly as if it were yesterday, the flash of cameras, the gentle squeeze of my father's hand before he gave me away, the way my husband's eyes locked onto mine under the golden lights of the ceremony hall. I told myself I had finally found a safe harbor, a partner to walk every path of life with. But even then, tiny cracks had started to form beneath the polished surface. Moments I ignored, words I brushed aside. The honeymoon glow faded faster than I ever imagined. He became distant, his conversations shorter, his smiles rarer. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night and see him staring at his phone, his face lit by the screen's pale blue light. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd dismiss me with a casual shake of his head. I wanted to believe it was just an adjustment period. That all marriages had quiet days. That we'd laugh and travel and share every sunrise together soon enough. I had no idea the first journey he'd plan as my husband would be one I wasn't even invited to. The thought still makes my stomach twist, but at that moment, as I sat in our dimly lit bedroom, I didn't know what was coming. I only knew my life was about to take a turn, one that would change everything. The morning began with the smell of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the kitchen, the sunlight spilling through the lace curtains like liquid gold. I had planned to make his favorite breakfast, soft omelets with herbs, buttered toast and fresh orange juice. It was my quiet way of reminding him that I still cared, even if our first month of marriage felt like we were strangers sharing a house. He walked in, phone in hand, his steps hurried, almost impatient. His eyes barely met mine before he spoke. He said it so casually, like it was a piece of everyday news. His family was going on a trip. I felt a flicker of excitement, imagining us walking hand in hand in some scenic spot, maybe taking the kind of photographs couples frame in their living rooms. I asked him where we were going. That's when the pause came. A hesitation, small but sharp, before the words landed like shards of glass. I wasn't going. My smile froze. I thought he was joking, maybe trying to tease me, but his face was calm, his tone unchanged. He continued talking about dates and bookings, the places they'd visit, the relatives they'd meet, without my name ever crossing his lips. I remember staring at his lips moving, but the sound around me blurred. The coffee smelled bitter now. My hands trembled slightly under the table. My heart was caught between disbelief and an ache so deep it made my chest heavy. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. Instead, I excused myself, walked to the balcony, and let the winter wind bite my face while I tried to process what had just happened. Somewhere between the rush of passing cars below and the muted hum of the city, I realized something. This wasn't just a trip without me. This was a choice. And choices like this left scars. That evening, the house felt colder than usual. He was in the living room, talking to his sister on the phone, laughing about the itinerary for their trip. The sound carried through the walls, each laugh a needle under my skin. I sat on the bed, the light from the bedside lamp spilling across the open book on my lap. I hadn't read a single word. My fingers were curled around the edges of the page, holding on like it could anchor me against the rising tide of emotion. Inside me, a storm was brewing. But it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like the way the ocean looks still before a hurricane strikes. I kept asking myself why. Why, just a month after saying vows to be my partner, did he choose to step into a journey without me? Was I a stranger in my own marriage? Or had I simply been naive to think love meant inclusion? He peeked into the room once, only to grab his jacket, saying they'd be gone for a week. I nodded, my lips barely parting to wish him a good trip. It was the first time I didn't mean the words that left my mouth. When the door clicked shut behind him, the silence was deafening. My reflection in the mirror caught my attention. My eyes looked different. No tears. No begging. Just focus. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized I didn't want to confront him, scream at him, or cling to a seat in his life. No. I wanted to create something so unforgettable, so much bigger than his small act of exclusion, that my absence on his family trip would be a detail he'd never stop noticing. The storm inside me was no longer about heartbreak. It was about power. That night, I lay in bed long after the lights were off. The hum of the city outside my window faded into the background, replaced by the relentless pounding of my own thoughts. The ceiling above me felt like an empty screen, blank, waiting for me to project something onto it. I picked up my phone, more out of habit than purpose, and began scrolling. Travel blogs, Instagram reels, photos of people laughing under foreign skies. Each image struck me differently tonight. They weren't just vacation pictures anymore. They were possibilities. A thought crept in quietly, almost timid at first. If they could have their trip without me, why couldn't I have mine? Not just any trip, but something grander, something that would make their little family getaway look like a lazy afternoon walk. My fingers began to move faster, opening tabs, comparing flights, reading guides. Europe. The very word tasted like freedom. Paris, Rome, Prague. Cities with their own music, their own magic. Places where the weight of my marriage's first wound couldn't reach me. I imagined myself in a red dress under the Eiffel Tower's night lights, or wandering the streets of Rome with gelato in hand. Each image was a brushstroke on a canvas I was suddenly desperate to paint. The more I planned, the more the ache in my chest transformed. This wasn't just escape, it was reclamation. Reclaiming my joy, my worth, my story. By the time the clock struck 2 in the morning, I had a rough route sketched out, hotel options bookmarked, and a list of my closest friends who'd jump at the chance to join me. Somewhere deep in my chest, a dangerous little smile began to grow. This wasn't going to be just a trip. This was going to be a statement. The next morning, I moved through the house like nothing had changed. I made breakfast, nodded at his passing comments, and even smiled when he mentioned their packing list. But under that calm surface, my mind was working like the gears of a finely tuned clock. The plan had to stay invisible until it was too late to question it. My husband couldn't suspect a thing, not before his trip, not even while he was gone. I started with my friends. No group chats, no obvious phone calls. Instead, I sent private voice notes, each one no longer than 10 seconds. A simple question, whispered almost like a secret. Are you ready for the trip of our lives? The replies came quickly, bursts of excitement, half-giggled yes, and rapid questions about where, when and how. I told them to keep it quiet, to use encrypted apps for details. We were planning more than a holiday. We were orchestrating something that felt like a perfectly timed performance. Booking flights was like playing chess. I used incognito mode, switched devices, and sent confirmation emails to a separate, rarely used account. Hotels were reserved with flexible cancellation policies, just in case. Every move was deliberate, every click measured. Late at night, while he scrolled through photos of his upcoming trip, I sat beside him, pretending to browse recipes or watch short videos. In reality, my fingers danced over maps of Europe, pinning hidden gems and marking the best rooftops for sunset views. The thrill wasn't just in the trip itself, it was in the secrecy. It was knowing that in just a few weeks, while he posed for family photos in crowded tourist spots, I'd be halfway across the world, living scenes out of a movie. For the first time in weeks, I felt a rush of control. This wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about reminding myself who I was before someone tried to shrink me. And the best part? He'd never see it coming. The morning of his trip arrived wrapped in the soft chill of winter air. Suitcases lined the hallway, the faint smell of his cologne mixing with the scent of brewed tea. His family's laughter spilled through the open doorway as they waited outside in the car, their voices bright and careless. I stood by the door, wearing the same calm smile I'd practiced in the mirror the night before. He kissed my cheek lightly, his mind already on the week ahead. I wished him a safe journey, my voice steady, almost gentle. The moment the car rolled away and disappeared around the corner, the silence in the house shifted. It wasn't heavy anymore, it was electric. I moved quickly. My suitcase was already packed, hidden behind the bed since last night. Passport, boarding pass, travel wallet, all neatly tucked inside. I slipped into my coat, locked the front door, and stepped into the waiting cab parked 2 houses down, out of sight from prying eyes. As the city blurred past the windows, my heart pounded, not with fear, but with a giddy rush I hadn't felt in years. The airport was alive with movement, rolling luggage, hurried footsteps, and the low hum of flight announcements in different languages. Standing in line for boarding, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. I didn't look like the quiet, left-behind wife anymore. My eyes held something sharper, something freer. When the plane lifted off the ground, I pressed my forehead to the cool window and watched the city shrink into dots and lines. Somewhere out there, my husband was starting his little family holiday. But me? I was heading toward a world that would make his trip look like a school picnic. And I wasn't coming back the same person. The first night in Paris felt like stepping into a dream I didn't know I'd been chasing. The city pulsed with life, its streets glowing under soft golden lamps, the air scented faintly with fresh bread and rain on cobblestone. Our hotel overlooked the Seine, where the river mirrored the twinkling lights of the bridges above. My friends and I dropped our bags and headed straight out, pulled by the magnetic hum of the city. The Eiffel Tower rose in the distance, not just a landmark but a living, breathing spectacle. As the clock struck the hour, it erupted into 1,000 glittering lights, as if the stars themselves had decided to visit Earth. I stood there, frozen, the cold air curling around my cheeks, and for the first time since my Marriage, I felt something warm inside, pure, unshaken joy. We walked for hours, weaving through narrow streets lined with cafes and patisseries, the smell of butter and sugar wrapping around us like a soft scarf. Street musicians played soft jazz near the riverbanks, their notes spilling into the night like a secret only Paris could keep. At a small rooftop bar, we sipped wine under the open sky. The city stretched out beneath us, alive and infinite. I leaned on the railing, feeling the hum of conversation behind me, the faint echo of laughter, and the music drifting up from the streets below. Somewhere across the world, my husband was probably scrolling through his phone, surrounded by the familiar. I was here in a place where everything felt new, untamed, and mine. It wasn't just a vacation anymore. It was a love affair, between me and the world. The morning air in Rome was warm, kissed by the scent of strong espresso drifting from corner cafes. Sunlight spilled across terracotta rooftops, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. The streets were alive, buzzing Vespas weaving through traffic, locals greeting one another with quick embraces, and the distant toll of church bells marking the hour. We started the day in the heart of the city, standing before the Colosseum. It's colossal. Arches loomed above us, ancient and weathered, holding centuries of stories within their stones. I traced my fingers over the cold surface, imagining the roar of the crowd, the clash of gladiators. Rome didn't just show you history, it made you feel it. By midday, we were wandering through cobblestone alleys, where laundry fluttered from balconies, and every corner revealed another hidden piazza. We stopped at a tiny family-owned trattoria, its tables spilling into the street. The pasta arrived steaming, tossed with rich sauces that tasted like secrets passed down through generations. Each bite was a reminder that life could be savored slowly, without the weight of anyone else's timetable. Later, at the Trevi Fountain, we joined the crowd, the air thick with the sound of rushing water and the clink of coins hitting marble. I closed my eyes and tossed a coin over my shoulder, making a silent wish. Not for love, not for him, but for the courage to keep choosing myself, no matter where life took me. That night, we sat on the Spanish steps, gelato melting in our hands, watching the city below glow under the fading sunset. I felt light, almost untouchable, as if I had stepped out of the shadow of the woman I had been and into the warmth of the one I was becoming. Rome wasn't just a stop on a map. It was a turning point. It happened in Venice. The sun was dipping low, casting molten gold over the rippling water, the gondolas swaying gently at the docks. I was leaning against the railing of the Rialto Bridge, my friends laughing beside me, when my phone began to buzz. His name lit up the screen. For a moment, I considered letting it ring out, letting him wonder in silence. But curiosity tugged at me, and I swiped to answer. His voice came through, sharper than usual, with an edge he didn't bother to hide. He had seen the photos my friends and I in Paris under the Eiffel Tower, throwing coins into the Trevi Fountain, strolling along Venetian canals. His words tumbled out in fragments, half question, half accusation. When did I plan this? Why didn't I tell him? I didn't give him the explanations he was searching for. I didn't owe him that. My voice was calm, even warm, as I told him I was simply living my life. That there were moments too precious to miss, and I had decided not to miss mine. The silence on the other end was thick. I could almost hear him realizing what had happened, not just that I had traveled without him, but that I had thrived without him. As I ended the call, a gondolier began singing in the distance, his voice carrying over the water like something timeless. I slipped my phone into my bag, letting the sound wash over me. He could keep his questions. I was busy living the answers. When my plane touched down, the city outside the airport window looked the same as when I had left, but I wasn't the same. My suitcase was heavier, but not because of souvenirs. It carried stories, laughter, and moments that no one could take away from me. I walked through the arrival gates with my head high, the familiar scent of home wrapping around me like an old coat I'd outgrown. My husband was there, waiting, his expression unreadable. He reached for my suitcase, but I kept my hand firmly on the handle. We drove home in silence. The walls of the house, once a place where I felt small, now felt different. I had stood beneath the Eiffel Tower, walked through the ruins of Rome, floated along the canals of Venice. My world was bigger now, and no amount of indifference or exclusion could make it small again. In the quiet of my own room, I unpacked slowly. A scarf from Paris. A postcard from Rome. A tiny glass trinket from Venice. Each one felt like proof, not of where I'd been, but of what I'd become. This trip wasn't just about showing him I could live without his approval. It was about proving to myself that I didn't need to wait for permission to live fully. As I stood by the window, the city lights blinking in the distance, I realized something. He might have planned a journey without me, but I had taken one he could never follow. And from now on, my life would be filled with journeys of my own making, whether anyone came along or not. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.